News, events, sports. Same time, same place, right in the heart of Isla Vista. UCSB TV is serving UC Santa Barbara and the surrounding community with real journalism.
Hello and welcome back to UCSB TV. You're tuned in to the first episode of Winter Quarter. I'm Alexandra Goldberg, UCSB TV producer. This week we spoke with Kelly Barskey, UCSB's first ever female athletics director, about the impact she wants to make on Gaucho history. Then we covered how Santa Barbara community commemorated Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. on January 16th. But first, after record-breaking torrential storms hit the Central Coast earlier this month, the cliffs along Del Playa are now bearing the brunt of the aftermath. Here's Pricila Flores reporting on the risk of cliff erosion on Del Playa.
After 2 days of heavy rain and multiple flood warnings, which delayed the start of UC Santa Barbara's winter quarter, the aftermath is causing a long-term issue for the residents of Isla Vista. As the storm battled its way through California, UCSB Student Affairs sent a cautionary email to students prior to the first day of winter quarter. It advised students to stay off balconies and away from the edge of the bluffs during and after a storm, to stay a minimum of 1.5 times the cliff's height while on the beach, and to be aware of rock falls and slides. The email mentions an incident in 2017 where 10 feet of balcony on Del Playa Drive collapsed and fell into the ocean. The houses along the ocean side of Del Playa are most at risk, while the waves will continue to hit the bases of the cliffs, causing the sediment to be destroyed. Rainfall, groundwater, and trash runoff then wash away the sediment from the top of the cliffs. With leases opening up for the 2023 to 2024 school year, waking up to a view is tempting for students, but they might be signing up for more than what they bargained for.
I think that a lot of the safety questions, in all honesty, have to do with looking at landlords and things like that, because these are students that are renting their homes along the cliffs. The IVCSD recently wrote a letter of support to Supervisor Laura Capps and asked her, we're looking at changing the permits you would need to put up larger fences along Oceanside DP that could promote safety. I mean, it definitely depends on the property on DP, but we've seen that cliffs in Isla Vista can erode from 2 to 14 inches per year, which is significant, especially when we're seeing huge storm surges like that. It's going to be erring on the larger side of those numbers because of the amount of water that is, pulling apart sediment. And also, a lot of the cliffs no longer have native vegetation on them, which is a problem because those root structures keep the bluffs in place. So I do think that there is a pretty significant risk living on Oceanside DP. And I do think that a lot of the risk, like I said, is kind of ignored by landlords too. And obviously I understand the appeal of living on Oceanside DP. It's incredibly beautiful. Who doesn't want to live on the ocean? But there are significant risks, especially during these times. And so, reminding people to stay back from balconies, to report anything that they see. Other things that can be important is if you're on the beach and you see a cliff face potentially collapse, calling that in as well, because, even if the person living above it didn't notice, it could still prove a potential structural risk. So, yeah.
Landlords in Isla Vista are meant to be mitigating concerns over public safety. UCSB TV contacted Playa Life, Wolf & Associates, St. George, to which Playa Life responded with this statement. Quote, outside of all that we can do is maintain our fences, monitor any erosion, and repeatedly tell tenants to stay off the bluffs. Knock on wood, after a 50-year storm, there are not any major damage to the bluffs. Only event in recent history was at 6653 Del Playa in 2017 when a man-made event triggered a deck failure. This was the result of a past owner placing an unsupported concrete beam on the bluff, and it failed and took approximately 9 inches with it. UCSB geology professor Arthur Sylvester, who has studied the Isla Vista cliffs in the past, gave us his input.
So that's another way of saying what's been happening down there is going to happen in the future. It may be episodic. It may, nothing may happen for 10 or 15 years, and then all of a sudden one big storm comes along and tears the cliffs back 10 feet. And so it's going to be episodic. and as it has been in the past. Um, there are homes built right up at the cliff edge. What has happened in the past? Well, the cliff edge was out there farther. It was safe to build. And then the erosion has cut those cliffs back to the edge of the houses. And so, what's the option? One of the things that they've done there is the owners of those houses have cut those houses back. The other option is to armor the cliffs, that is, put concrete on the cliff face and stop the erosion. That has not worked very well. Again, 20, 25 years from now, that'll be all gone. They have built the houses on top of concrete caissons. These are posts that they drill a hole into the ground about as big around as a basketball, and pour concrete down there with steel and support the building on that. I think that the county is responsible for making the students aware of what the hazards are there and what the risks are. The hazard is there. What's the risk? Is the risk high? That so high that you say, gee, I just better not live here, or so low that they'll say, I'll just take my chances.
If students feel worried about their residencies, they are urged to contact the Santa Barbara County for an inspection.
That was Pricila Flores talking about the recent storm surge and those long-term effects on Del Playa Cliffs. Up next, sports anchor Hannah Abergel sat down with the newest UCSB Athletics director, Kelly Barskey.
Hey Gauchos, Hannah Abergel here, your sports anchor for UCSB TV. I got the chance to interview Kelly Barskey, the first female athletic director in history for the Gauchos. Come along with me to hear her story and the impact that she's going to make. Enjoy! Kelly, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for being here and talking with me.
No, thank you for having me. I know you're so busy and getting settled in your new position. Can you kind of tell us about that? Tell us how that's been?
Yeah, we talked before this. I mean, everyone's so busy, at this time, the start of the winter quarter and kicking off classes, and certainly with our programs all in full swing, and student athletes certainly out there training and competing and starting classes for the winter quarter. And so, again, I'm thrilled to be here. I am really thrilled to be a Gaucho, and it's a great way to start off 2023 by certainly being named into the permanent position.
Kelly is the first female athletic director here at UCSB. This is crazy and exciting, not just for us Gauchos, but for women in business, women in athletics, and it's nice to see a change, and it's very exciting for females like me who aspire to work in the athletic department to see you succeed. A little background on Kelly. Kelly served as the Deputy Athletic Director and Senior Women Administrator for the Gauchos. She also was the Big West Liaison for the NCAA Division I Council and is a member of the NCAA Women's Basketball Oversight Committee. Kelly, you originally joined the Gauchos as a women's basketball coach. Can you give us some insight on that?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Thank you for letting me share my story a little bit. My journey certainly to this position has been a bit of a zigzag. It's not a straight line, but you can see a thread woven through everything, and that really goes back to education, mentorship, and serving students. And that's where my heart is. That's my love. So, I was a college student athlete. I came out of college, and I was an elementary school teacher, actually, and had an opportunity to go back and do some grad work at the University of New Hampshire. That led for me to an aha moment of getting to work with college students and college student athletes. That progressed to a decade long of coaching, which ended up here at Santa Barbara and coaching women's basketball. I had the great opportunity to move over to the College of Letters and Science and be an academic advisor and work with students throughout the campus until moving back in, as you mentioned, Deputy AD and serving really to create a lot of collaborations, coordination, to serve students, support students throughout their journey here with our campus and community. And so moving into this next step, like I said, I'm really excited about it. I'm so incredibly thankful of all of the mentors and allies and people who have supported me in my journey, and to be able to step into a new challenge, but again, always at the heart of it, for me is how are we serving students, how are we building community, and how are we using education to enhance experiences.
Yeah, totally. And you mentioned kind of a zigzag moment. What can you tell others who are currently in that situation? I know a lot of students in general kind of don't really know what the path they want to take. So can you kind of give us some insight on that?
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to. As I mentioned, it for me, it all comes back to, and I didn't know this. I've learned this more, later in my career. I wish I was understanding of this earlier on. But for me, it really goes back to what are you passionate about and what are your core values? What's important to you? So if you know those, the jobs may change, the role may change, the location may change, but you're still doing what you love doing every single day. So again, for me, whatever the role has been, it still gets me up every day to say and be inspired by the students on this campus that I get to work with. And I hope to support their journey, whether it's through partnerships or directly working with them or systems that we have in place. The goal is always to help support and serve students and, like I said, and to bring community together.
Yeah, totally. I love how you mentioned core values. I think that's something really huge that every person should have. But what really did inspire you to take this role as athletic director?
Oh, that's a good question and a tough question. Again, I think I got to a point in my career where I had the experiences. And again, I don't know exactly what it is to be a student athlete in 2023 or a student on this campus or a staff member. I'm not pretending that I know it all, but I think what I do, bring with me is certainly experience and also hopefully asking the right questions. So as we go along and we try to create the right planning and the right structures and the support services to create for student athletes the ability to be academically successful, athletically successful in competitive programs, to represent our Gaucho community in the right way, and to serve our community, our students, our campus staff and faculty, our community, friends and alumni, to have them come to events and have really great shared experiences. I think I have the experience where I've got to a point in my career that I can help strategically pull that all together.
Exactly. And you mentioned 14%. How do you feel being in that percentage?
I feel incredibly honored and lucky and supported. And I recognize, again, I've had friends, mentors, allies who have supported to provide me opportunity and experience along the way and promoted and helped me in my journey. So I hope to do the same with others. I hope I can help provide opportunity and mentorship and inspire others. And I hope we can continue to work towards a place that, we're not identifying percentages in this way, or we're not identifying first female, but really have a common place of, the best person for the job is going to be in the job.
You mentioned how sometimes it's okay not to be okay. Sometimes it's okay to make mistakes. And this year in the NCAA, we've lost a bunch of female athletes, especially due to suicide and mental health. What impact do you think you can make for our athletes in regards to those concerns?
Yeah, that touches me, actually, as you just said, that you probably saw. Certainly I want every student, and my aspirational goal is every student and student athlete that goes off to college to have this really successful environment, this experience that's positive and that helps in their lifelong journey. In general, we know that that's not life. And I'm not talking just suicide. I'm talking about, in general, there's hardships that we all endure. And so first of all, what we've seen is tragic and heartbreaking. We wish we could turn back time, and we can't. But I think all of us, hopefully in this field, in this area, engage in learning from families, learning from professionals, listening and learning from our students and what their needs are, and continue to try to find the right supports, resources, and again, acknowledgement, being out there saying it's okay to not be okay. And please know we're with you.
Agree with you. I think 2023 so far, fingers crossed, knock on wood, so far it's been pretty good, and I'm excited for it. A little bit of a fun question I have for you. I know you're super busy, but what is one thing you wish you did more?
Oh my gosh, I don't even know how to answer that.
It's a tough question.
Wow. I don't know. I think I really, and I mean this genuinely, like, I love what I get to do.
Right.
I am busy. I don't stop. But I've always been like that and I love it. And
Yeah.
so I bounce back and forth between, and I get the great opportunity again to have this wonderful family and to be raising 3 kids. I have 2 boys and a girl. So bouncing back and forth between, my husband and my family, my kids, to Gaucho events, to
Right.
Gaucho games,
Right.
to interacting with community. I just love having that opportunity and the privilege of doing that.
Yeah.
There isn't anything right now I wish I could do more of, except for maybe wishing I could be present with my family or at
Yeah.
certain events, or,
Yeah.
or had a little more time. But there's not a hobby or something
Okay.
else I want to
Okay.
do. Yeah.
All right, great. Well, Gauchos, thank you so much. I hope you guys enjoyed this interview with Kelly. Kelly, any last words you'd like to say to anyone else?
Yes, I would like to say to everyone watching, please come to any Gaucho event, any Gaucho game. Know that our intent is to create this family and community and have great shared experiences. So come out. If you see me, say hi to our staff. They'll be looking for you as well. And come out and just enjoy. We live in such a special place. Get outside, enjoy, and have fun.
Great. Well, thank you so much. It was so nice to speak to you, and we'll see you out there.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, Gauchos. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that interview. It was so great to hear the impact that she's going to make as well as her story. I'll see you guys next week for UCSB TV. Have a great one.
What's going on, Gauchos? Welcome to the inaugural segment of Gaucho Review, where we review the past week in UCSB athletics. Since this is our first episode of the quarter, we have lots of catching up to do. To begin the quarter, men's volleyball secured a huge win over 10th-ranked USC. 2 days later, both our men's and women's basketball teams secured close wins over our biggest rivals, Cal Poly. Our men's basketball team also defeated in-conference rivals UC Irvine in what could be a preview of the 2 teams competing for a Big West championship. In the coming week, both our basketball teams take on Hawaii tomorrow with the women's game at the Thunderdome. This weekend, our women's tennis team travels to Auburn, while our swim team will compete against UNLV, Wyoming, and Hawaii. Additionally, our women's water polo team will be traveling to Princeton. And before we leave you until next week, we want to give a huge shout out to women's basketball's Anya Choice, whose 17 points, including 8 in the fourth quarter, led our Gauchos to their 4th consecutive victory over Cal Poly. Ryan Greenburg for UCSB TV. See you next week.
That was Hannah Abergel, UCSB TV sports anchor with UCSB's first female athletics director, Kelly Barskey. Next up, news anchor Rebecca Fairweather spoke with Isaac Garrett, Vice President of the MLK Committee of Santa Barbara, about the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Hello, my name is Rebecca Hurtado Fairweather, your news anchor, and you're watching UCSB TV. On Monday, January 16th, the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Committee of Santa Barbara came together to celebrate the 16th annual MLK holiday commemoration celebrating his life and legacy. Keynote speakers such as Salud Carbajal, Greg Hart, and Dr. Diana Berry came together to speak about Dr. King's message and his life and legacy. Every third Monday of January commemorates the life, work, and legacy of civil rights leader and Baptist minister Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Dr. King was instrumental in the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965 through his nonviolent means of ending racial segregation. Some notable demonstrations include the Montgomery, Alabama bus boycotts and the March on Washington. Within 4 days of Dr. King's assassination in 1968, legislation for the national holiday was introduced, which would not be passed until 15 years later. Dr. King's legacy spans far and wide throughout the world, but his activism was largely influential in the development of the Black Studies Department here at UCSB. In 1968, the Afro-American Student Union asked the University of California to recognize Black Studies as an educational focus. The union also asked for acknowledgement and equitable opportunities for Black students. Their proposals went ignored by officials, which led to the October 14th demonstration outside of North Hall, calling for their demands to be met and for the appointment of a Black woman within the Educational Opportunity Program. This demonstration then led to the proposition of a Black Studies program at UCSB, which currently ranks 9th in the country.
I am the Vice President and the Program Coordinator.
What does it mean for our country to have a nationally recognized holiday in honor of a civil rights leader almost 55 years after his passing?
Well, I think it's an opportunity for us to recommit ourselves to help make the dream of Dr. Martin Luther King come true. We all have a responsibility if we want to see things to improve in this country and to move forward and to move past some of the bigotry we've experienced in the past.
So, what do you think his legacy is today, and what has his activism taught the country specifically?
Well, I think his legacy today is still alive and progressing, but to some extent, I think some of our leaders have begun to try to use his legacy for their own personal benefit. I think what was the truth 20 years ago is the truth today. What was wrong 20 years ago is wrong today. And I think that we need to be aware of that.
So, what do local acts of service mean on this day, and what does it mean for the surrounding community, especially as the MLK Committee of Santa Barbara has been doing this for 16 years now?
Right. Well, let me just share with you the mission statement to foster positive relationships between the many diverse groups in the Santa Barbara area and the surrounding communities, to sponsor programs and events that exemplify the teaching of Dr. Martin Luther King, and to put on celebrations to honor his holiday. We aim to touch somebody every year. Say, if we only touch 10 people, and those 10 people touch 10 people, those 10 touch 10 people, then his word and his legacy is still alive and is still moving forward.
How can we continue to carry Dr. King's message outside of the national holiday? And what advice would you give to people who want to drive change within their community but don't know where to start?
To some extent, it's easy. You can start small, basically. Sometimes when we talk about contribution, we think it has to be momentous. It does not have to be momentous. It can be very small, and it can be very simple. Sometimes it can be just acknowledging a person. Sometimes it can be just saying, thank you for what you've done. And when a person feels good, then naturally they're going to try to do good things. And this is what we need. We need people to be able to show kindness to each other, be respectful to each other. Let's try to put ourselves in their shoes without being so critical of each other.
As we enter the new year and the new quarter comes pouring in, Dr. King's message of peace reminds us of the power of community and the importance of listening to one another. I look forward to another year with my fellow Gauchos, and thank you for watching UCSB TV. I'm your news anchor, Rebecca Hurtado Fairweather.